Men's hockey at the 2026 Winter Olympics are underway, and we already have some chaos. We got a statement win from Canada, a scare for Sweden, total dominance by the Americans, Switzerland quietly rolling, Germany handling business, and Finland getting upset by Slovakia. So let's break this all down. Hi everyone, my name is King Gratz. Welcome back to the channel, guys, and this is a quick recap of all of the first few games of competition for the men's hockey tournament at the 2026 Winter Olympics. And in case you missed any of the action, then this should be a good way of you understanding how things have gone so far. So I hope you enjoy, and let's get things going. I'll start with the big game here, and that is Slovakia versus Finland, with Slovakia upsetting Finland 4-1 in this game. Definitely a huge surprise considering that there's a big talent gap here. Most people would have expected Finland to be fighting with the Swedes for winning the top of their group. And Slovakia, despite having some good NHL players, probably a lot of people kind of overlooked them, and that includes me myself. Finland more or less dominated possession for the majority of this game. They outshot Slovakia 40 to 25, more or less. So that's a huge disparity there. But for Slovakia, they basically played a textbook underdog game. Full team buy in defensively. They were very opportunistic on offense, and they basically waited for Finland to make a mistake, and they capitalized on those mistakes. Juraj Slavkovsky, who was the tournament MVP in 2022 Beijing, he had a really good game. He had two goals. One of them was a power play goal for Slovakia. So really good work by him. For Finland, the only guy to actually hit the goal sheet was Teuvo Teravainen. Definitely surprising considering, you got guys like Rupe Hintz and Mikko Rantanen who pretty much were nowhere to be found in this game for Finland. Now that Slovakia's got 3 points, Group B looks like it's anyone could basically take this group now. And for Finland, they're in a really big hole, and the turnaround is very abrupt as they have to play a very early game tomorrow, and that game is going to be against Sweden. While for Slovakia, they're basically now living on cloud nine at this moment. Good for them, living up to that underdog mentality. Props to the Slovaks. Moving on, we've got Sweden versus Italy. The final score was 5-2 for the Sweden. This was also a game that surprisingly was a lot closer than most people thought. In case if you didn't watch this game, Italy actually was very much giving Sweden a run for their money here. The score was tied at 2 once we get to the third period, and it really wasn't until then that Sweden finally pulled away with a couple goals from Gabriel Landeskog and Gustav Forsling. But still, that is a really close game for a country like Sweden where the talent gap is so extreme, especially because Italy does not have an NHL player or even someone with former NHL experience. Damian Clara, who was the goalie for the Italians, he made 46 saves. Unfortunately, he got hurt in this game, which really sucks. And for Italy, even though they didn't get any points, the goal differential is at least respectable. It's got themselves in a pretty good position because with the result with the Finland-Slovakia game, they're tied with Finland in goal differential. Group A action here, Canada taking down Czechia 5-0. In my opinion, I think this game was a lot closer than what the score sheet tells you. Despite Canada winning 5-0, the Czechs were pretty much trying to match Canada with, hit for hit, shot for shot, save for save for the majority of the first half of this game. And the Canadians were more or less held in check. It really wasn't until like the third period that Czechia started falling apart, and Lucas Dostal started giving up some goals that probably shouldn't have gone in. There was a late goal at the end of the first period that gave Canada the lead that they would never relinquish. They got scoring from mostly the new guys, Macklin Celebrini, Bo Horvat, Nick Suzuki also got a goal towards the end of the game here. And Jordan Binnington, despite having all of that criticism when he was put on Team Canada for this Olympics, he's starting to prove the doubters wrong by having a really good game against a Czech team that a lot of people have as a dark horse candidate to be very good in this tournament. For the Czechs, I think that they were doing good. A little bit disappointed in David Pastrnak for not making much of an impact in this game. I think Martin Necas had more of an impact than he did. Hopefully for the Czechs, they can turn things around quickly here and get back on the radar. So next up, we've got USA versus Latvia, which the final score was 5-1. And the first thing I could say about this game is that when I saw the news headlines saying that, oh, USA thumps Latvia, I don't think that's a proper representation of how this game actually went. I think Latvia deserves a lot of credit. They played with heart. They were Very good defensive minded. I thought Elvis Merzlikins was very good in net, especially in the early going. And despite the Americans basically peppering Merzlikins with shots, Latvia basically was in it for most of this game. First period ended 1-1 after two goals for the Americans were disallowed, and Latvia was able to keep things going with a goal of their own, which was really good for them. Things really started falling apart in the third period when they gave up a couple of goals there. I don't really blame Merzlikins at all or the Latvians. I think they just kind of ran out of gas, and the Americans just finally pushed through after a little bit of like resiliency in the early going. If it wasn't for those two goals that were disallowed and a couple of unlucky bounces for the U.S., this game probably would have been like a 9-1, 10-1 game for the U.S. So for Latvia, I think that it was still an admirable game for them. Definitely not the result that they wanted, but it's a quick turnaround for them tomorrow. And if they can get themselves a couple points in their next game, then it will put themselves in a good position to get through to the quarters. We have Germany and Denmark, with Germany winning 3-1 there. I tried my best to catch up to this game. I was mostly focusing on the US and Latvia game, but from what I can tell, I like how Germany was able to space out the talent from the NHL they have on this roster. They had Leon Draisaitl riding his own line, and then they had JJ Peterka with Tim Stützle running a second unit. Moritz Seider was running the blue line more or less, and Philip Grubauer, who's the only NHL goaltender running in goal for this game. And despite the Danish putting in some pressure, being opportunistic on offense, you can clearly see Germany was overpowering them offensively. Leon Draisaitl and Tim Stützle had a good game, and getting those 3 points puts Germany in a good position. For Denmark, you can't really, fault them for not being able to put much more on the scoreboard. The talent gap is really extreme, and I'm a little bit disappointed in Nikolai Ehlers because he wasn't really that present in this game, didn't make himself super noticeable. Frederick Anderson faced a bunch of shots, but Denmark didn't really do enough defensively to kind of help him out. So, unfortunately for Denmark, it is what it is, and it's a quick turnaround for them tomorrow as well, as they're going to be playing Latvia in the morning hours. And last but not least, going back to Group A, we have Switzerland versus France, with the Swiss beating the French 4-0. A very quiet, resounding win for the Swiss, in which I think that maybe people should have paid more attention to. Basically, Switzerland dominated this entire game. They outshot the French, they limited their offensive abilities, and pretty much smothered the French in their own zone. They basically kicked them up and down the ice, if I can put it lightly. There was 2 goals by Timo Meyer. He had a great game in this one. Leonardo Giannoni with a shutout, strong goaltending appearance for him. Also, the power play was successful for Switzerland in this matchup. For France, it's not surprising. The talent gap is quite extreme. At least they kept the goal differential low, so that way they can have a chance to rebound a little bit later in this tournament, but it's still going to be tough for them in their next little matchups, as they still have to play Czechia and Canada. That's all from me. Let me know what you guys think about the Olympics so far. Any overreactions, I would appreciate it. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you next time.